everybody, and welcome to our first interview. I'm Tessa, and this is Kendra. Kendra, say hi because I think it won't show you otherwise. And we are here with our very own teen author, Shion Cook. Um, she is a teen author who started her writing journey in fourth grade. She's gone on to be published in three short story anthologies, and she's also working on her own novel, The Last Heiress. Shion is adventurous, whether in a book or real life, and she loves learning and uses her knowledge to craft new ideas. A friend to all, Shion loves talking to anyone who will listen. So everybody give a warm welcome to Shion.
Thanks, guys.
Please tell me I said your name right. I did, right?
Yes, you did.
Okay,
Yes.
thank God. That would have been really bad.
All right, we're so glad to have you here, and I think we're gonna get started with asking some questions. So
Awesome.
first, we have some questions just to get to know you as a person. So my first question is, if you were the main character of a book, what genre would that book be?
I would have to say fantasy because I have always lived with royal life. Like growing up, it was Disney princesses all the way, and Barbie fantasy. I was a sucker for all of those. In fact, I still watch Barbie movies to this day because they just make me really happy. So it'd definitely be a fantasy.
I love that. Me too, honestly. What was the first book that made you cry?
Oh, so this one was a book that I got assigned for a class I was in. It was Where the Red Ferns Grow. And I was reading it and I loved the story and I was so happy. And then the end happened and the dogs died and I just lost it because I was so emotionally attached to those dogs and it's just the saddest thing for me.
That is exactly the first book that got me to cry too.
Oh, really? I've never read it, but I've definitely heard of it.
Oh
It's so good.
so good. And
no one told me the ending, so I'm surprised.
I know. And what's worse is we watched the movie afterwards in class.
Oh no.
So sad. All right. Next question. Okay. If you could go back in time to when you were younger, what would you tell your younger self?
Oh boy.
It's a tough question.
Probably to be patient. I've always been someone who's like, oh, I gotta have this now. Like, if I don't have this now, then it's not gonna happen. And especially when it came to writing, and I've been wanting to be a musician or acting. And so, as a kid, as a kid, I just didn't have those opportunities. And so I kind of beat myself up for it sometimes. I was like, I should be doing this. There's so many of these young actors or musicians, and I had to take a step back and be like, you know what? It's okay. You don't have to be a bestseller author at 13. You can wait until you're 20 and it's still as great of accomplishment.
Yeah, I love that.
My
Also,
current self needs to hear that.
I just noticed the swords by you, and I have to say,
oh yeah,
I love those.
We're big fantasy people in my house.
Can I just move into your family?
I wish I had something in my house like that. That's so cool.
I have a big purple ball gown. My sister and I have tiaras. My brother's been making chainmail. They grew up making wood swords, and we'd play sword fight in our backyard.
That is the coolest thing.
Fantasy has always been a part of my life.
Yeah.
I love that. What was the best purchase you ever made as a writer and why?
Ooh, oh boy. As a writer, let's see. I mean, honestly, I'd have to say my laptop. Or at least my old Chromebook, because I used to write on our old computers that were slow, or one of them was so temperamental that it always had to be plugged in, otherwise it would shut off. And so you couldn't really bring it anywhere. So finally I got myself just like a Chromebook, and I think that was what I wrote most of my stories, and like that was my writing tool for the longest time.
Sweet. Yeah, I have a computer like that always has to be plugged in, and it is really annoying. Especially
It's
when the
really
cord's
hard.
yeah, especially when the cord's not long enough and like you're having to
Yeah.
yeah, that's annoying.
Well, then you have to like power it on every time you move locations and like reopen everything.
Yeah, it's really annoying. All right. What do you think your spirit animal is and why?
Ooh, that's hard. I always go with butterfly. I
I
love
could do that.
butterflies, and like the term social butterfly fits me most of the time. There are times that I'm like quiet author, like leave me alone, I'm just gonna write for hours, but most of the time I'm pretty social. And so like I also just love the beauty of them. And so the idea that um you have beauty but you can't see it, but others can, I've always liked that.
I love that. I feel like a butterfly isn't normally something that people think of when you say spirit animal. Because I feel like I always think of these great animals like a lion or something, but I really like that.
Small and fluttering around everywhere.
Yeah.
Um, oh, okay. If you could give up one thing to become a better writer, what would it be and why?
Ooh. Um, uh, Honestly, the first thought that came to mind is social media because, um, like most people, it's a big part of my life, like just to connect with people. But at the same time, it is one of the biggest distractions with my writing. It's I'm writing, and then it's like, oh, I had this idea. I'm gonna go message my friend, or oh, I gotta share this, and then you get distracted for scrolling for hours. So I feel like, I mean, if I had to give up something that I knew would make me a better writer, it would be social media.
That's a good answer. All right. Who or what um was your biggest inspiration to write? Like, yeah. Who helped you the most during your writing journey?
Okay. It was my mom, honestly. At least she was kind of the one who started me. Um, so fourth grade, I kind of like I wrote little stories, and it was just different thoughts or whatever. But when I was, oh, it was probably about 8 years ago, my mom got published, and so going to that, and then she'd go to state fairs and Marion County fairs and like all of these different things, and going to her with these events and being like her second and meeting all these other authors that were there at those events and like getting to go to these book signings. I realized that hey, I could do this too. Like if she can get published, like what's gonna stop me from doing it? It became a possibility and not like a dream that oh other people can do that, not me. Plus she corrects my grammar and my run-on sentences, and
Nice. I have my mom too.
she catches those way better than I do.
Yeah.
I
That
have
was
not
nice
let
to
my
have.
mother near my writing. If you could be anything besides a writer, what would you be?
Oh, I'd probably be a musician because music is another huge part of my life. I like things that can express myself, and so writing's one way I express myself, and music's another way I feel like I can express myself. And so if I had my wish, I would be a musician and like be performing for hundreds of people on a stage.
I always tell people I want to be a writer, but don't specify what kind of writer because I want to do both.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Did you always know from a young age that you were going to be a writer?
Actually, no. I remember in third grade, they gave us like those what do you want to be when you grow up writing assignments. And for me, being the crazy ambitious child that I am, I was like, oh, I'm gonna like live here and I'm gonna like live there and visit here and I'm gonna be a teacher and I'm gonna be a counselor and I'm gonna be a writer and I'm gonna be a musician and I'm gonna be an actress and all of these crazy things. And I couldn't really decide what I wanted to do. I just generally knew that something along those lines was what I wanted to be. And so it was never set in stone until, honestly, until I started going to teen author boot camp. I wrote and I'd share stories with friends, but it wasn't really until I came to teen author boot camp and my friends introduced me to this world, and then they gave all the tools and everything that you needed to learn. And I mean, even just opportunities such as the anthologies, that I realized, hey, I could actually do this.
I like that.
Awesome. And very much a mood. Our final get to know you question. What is one quality you would say a writer needs to have?
I personally believe that writers have to have the ability to kind of see both perspectives. Like, that's something with the writing community that I've always noticed, is that writers are people who are really understanding. And even if like someone is having a terrible day, they're not going to be like, oh, because they were mean to me, they're a bad person. They've always been someone who's like, oh, I wonder what really happened. Because as writers, we have to write the backstories. We have to write what happened to make the villain a villain. It's not that they were born a bad person, it's that something happened, something in their mind clicked, and that's what caused them to believe the things that they believe. And so I think to be a writer, or to genuinely write characters, you have to genuinely try to understand human beings and recognize that there's more than just their mood or how they treated you one time. There's their whole life that you don't even understand.
Yeah.
That's
I
really
really,
beautiful.
yeah. For me, I would have said imagination. I would just because
Yeah,
imagine.
imagination's important. I love character development. Out of all of the like writing qualities, like world building or all of the other things, like character development is my forte. It's what really interests me. And so I believe that a character, a good villain, makes or breaks a book.
Definitely. Yes. Can I quote you on that?
Of course.
All right. So now we're gonna get into some more writing questions. Um, some of these are from like our Instagram followers and stuff, and some of them are just straight from us. So let's see. Okay, as a young writer, how do you balance your writing life with your social life?
um, I was homeschooled since the fifth grade, so I didn't have a ton of a social life. I mean, I still went to school, I still had friends, but I honestly spent a lot of my time, I mean, even just doing schoolwork, writing. So, it's definitely a balance. I spent a lot of my time writing at night too. So, after everyone had gone to bed and the lights were all out, I'd have like my little nightlight on and my laptop on my lap, and I'd be writing for hours. Um, so for me, it was the difference between time of day. I often struggled writing when I knew that everyone else was awake because I wanted to talk to them. So for me, it was finding the times that I knew everyone was like out and would not be able to respond to my messages before I could write.
Before you got into writing, what was one thing you assumed about writing that you found to be false, and what would you tell other writers to help clear up that misconception?
Oh, I mean, honestly, I think I just believed that writing was easier than it is. I think I believed, like, I understood, your first time wasn't perfect, but I thought that, writers could, create a story and they would piece everything together. Like, this happens, and this happens, and this happens, and this happens, and then be able to just write it. And then, maybe go back and edit it, check grammar, and then it'd be like this glorious novel. I didn't realize how many plot holes that a story can have and still have after like 10 times of rewriting it. So that was a big shock when I, rewrote my first book, and I was like reading it and I was like, oh, this is like, there's so much missing. It doesn't feel right. And then going to rewrite it again and going, no, it still doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
I wrote my first book in 7 months, and I went back and I was like, this is why I wrote it in 7 months. It was terrible.
Yeah, you really go back when you're writing it, like you read back and you're writing and for me, I'm just like, wait, I wrote that. That definitely.
I just sent the first draft that I have like digitally to a friend of mine because they wanted my most current draft, but I'm not done with it yet. So I was like, I'm gonna send you the first one. You can read that. And I just looked over the first chapter and I was like, oh my goodness gracious. No.
It's embarrassing. It is. Okay. Let's see. How do you stay motivated to write?
I'm ambitious again. So, as a goal setter, I basically made a promise to myself that this is going to be the first book that I write. And I just kind of like push through it. And sometimes I'm literally just sitting there like, okay, just one word at a time. All you got to do is just type out one word and then type out one more word. And sometimes that is my writing process. And other times it's just like, oh, I have this idea, and like they just come. Most of the time, it's just one word at a time. But things like Nanowrimo have always helped too, because for me, it's a time that I can like set aside and be like, hey, this is the goal, and like we have a plan, and that helps a lot too. Sometimes, honestly, most of my writing for a few years was solely during NaNoWriMo because it was the only time that I could really push myself to finish something in that time.
Yeah, I like that. I actually didn't realize NaNoWriMo was a thing until this year when my friend was talking about it, and I was like, what's that? And so he explained to me what it was, and I was like, wow, I need to try that.
It's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and I think that it's a good writing tool.
I tried it in 8th grade, which is not the best time to try it when you're in the middle of middle school. But I did last summer when they did Camp NaNoWriMo, the musical. I did
Oh
workshop my
yeah.
musical in it. Yeah. Um, and on the topic of staying motivated, what helps you get over writer's block?
Oh, probably the same thing, just one word at a time. Because, I mean, I don't feel like I've had terrible writer's block where it's like literally nothing I do like feels right. Because I kind of just understand that like it's gonna be bad. Like sometimes the first idea is just bad, even if it's your first idea for the 10th time. And so it's just one word at a time. Like you really can't get over writer's block unless you write, because sitting and waiting for motivation, it's not going to come. You just kind of got to like go into it.
Yeah. Okay, we are gonna quickly do a lightning round because we are running out of time. So
Already?
let's get started.
Oh,
I
dang.
know. It feels like it just goes by so fast. Okay, what is your writing kryptonite?
Oh, probably social media. It's the one thing that like, I mean, it's the one thing that keeps me from writing.
Yeah, it is a huge distraction.
Friends.
Yes. You love them, but you hate them at the same time.
Yeah.
What is your favorite and least favorite thing about writing?
My favorite thing is the feeling of everything like coming together, like that moment that you just have that idea and you're like, oh, I know exactly what's gonna happen. Like that is the greatest feeling ever. And the worst feeling ever is when you're like sitting there and you really just want to get to this good part, but you're like, I gotta write dialogue. I gotta explain what happens. And it's the worst because you just have to sit there and like slowly try to figure out what is going on in this scene. And you really just don't know.
Definitely. All right. How has becoming published changed the way you write?
Honestly, it's helped me understand like the publishing process because I had no idea like what a publisher did until I got published and had that idea. And it really helped me look out for things that, I mean, it helped me see what they're really looking out for, like word choice, grammar, run-on sentences. And so with getting published, I understood a little bit more, like it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and like being super nitpicky about grammar doesn't entirely matter if your storyline doesn't quite work out. And sometimes your storyline doesn't work out because you have really bad grammar. So just like figuring out the flow of, you know, what they're really looking for has helped a lot.
Yeah. All right. Unfortunately, we are out of time.
Aww.
So fun talking with you guys and just know you better. Thank you for coming and interviewing with us. It's really
Of course.
All right. Well, have a great night and we'll see you later.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.